Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the September 24th edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everyone.
And we are getting very close to this year's National Black Book Festival. It is rapidly approaching. Last night we had our webinar with the vendors, and that went very well. We had 80 people on that Zoom call. So they were all excited, but that way they get all their questions answered before they arrive. And so we're excited. It's going to be a great event this year. We have another amazing show tonight, and I don't have any other updates other than we are going to be having TV commercials for those of you who live in Houston on channels 26 and 20. They start on Monday. So if you see one of them, send us a message on Facebook, and we'd be happy to know who's seeing our TV commercials about the festival. So we are going to bring on our first guest, and she is a Christian fiction author. She is multi-published, and Pat has been on the show, but I checked the archives. Now I have to check our archives to see when they were on before. And she was on in the fall of 2021. That was the last time she was on the show. So this show has been on for a while. And we've had a lot of people who publish a lot of books. They are and Pat has been writing books a long time. She's going to tell us exactly how long. And as a matter of fact, when you come on, I want to welcome you, Pat, to Black Authors Matter TV, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
But I wanted to tell you, this is some trivia or that you may not know. I used to edit books for Urban Books.
Oh, okay.
This was a while back. I want to say in the 2000s in there. And I edited a couple of your books. I was the copy editor. I was the last person to read your book. So, yeah. So
Full circle.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was back in my editing days. I don't do that anymore. I don't have the patience, but
you gotta.
But Rhonda does. If people watching the show are looking for an editor, Rhonda still has that patience.
Okay.
It's a little bit, but it's still there a little bit.
Yeah, I'd rather do marketing and promotion in that area.
And authors, we appreciate everything people do for us, from the marketing to the editing to the shout outs to even the invitation here. We are here because of people that care about books and promote us. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And you have a brand new book.
Your stories with us and trusting us with your stories.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now you have a brand new book, Accomplices in Love, and that book came out a couple of weeks ago.
It did.
On the 13th of September.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been seeing it on social media, so it's getting out, it's getting around, the word is getting out. Yay. And that's good. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the new book, just tell us your backstory on when you got started. Because like I said, I was editing your books in the 2000s, and I want to say the first half of the 2000s in there, like from 2000 to 2005, somewhere in there. And so when did you get started exactly?
Well,
and
my
how
first
did you get started?
This was my first book, Guilty of Love. It came out in 2007.
Okay, all right. So that might
And
have been one of the ones I edited. I don't know. But
yeah,
anyway, is
I
that
did.
a hardcover?
It is. Yes.
Okay. Was it
Uh,
hardcover originally?
no, what I did, because some people are collectors and this is book 14. I put all of them in hardcover on barnesandnoble.com because on Amazon or KDP, they just give you the front. And
Right.
I wanted people to have the jacket and stuff.
Okay.
So when I signed the deal with Urban, Joy Sale Jocelyn was my editor, and she believed in the story. And I had no idea that this character would live throughout decades, and now this is his son. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
so that's
Okay.
why it's called The Next Generation, because I mean, it's been 17 years and the kids are growing up, and I wanted to keep it true to the Jameson legacy. And he is just like his dad, handsome, confident, going after the woman he wants, determined, but still having that spiritual aspect that God, this is what I want. Will you bless me with the desires of my heart? But with this character, he had to know when to advance and when to retreat, because the Jameson man can be overwhelming. And he's just like his daddy. But it is such an honor that people have kept up with the Jamesons. This series is where I put African American genealogy in it. And it's also the series where I'm able to put in the Black history, which takes some research. Can't do it in all the books, but I look forward to game night. People always talk about game night, where there's a competition, Team Kid, Team Park, and they battle their minds and their wits for Black history. So when I first started off, it was called the Guilty series because I had a 2-book deal. This was my first book, and Talk to Me was my second book. That was my second book. And so then Joy Sell Jocelyn said, well, who killed Grandma Beebe? I'm like, I don't know. She was really never, ever supposed to be part of the story, except for her comedy relief with her Stacey Adams shoes, gun-toting grandma that didn't have kids. And that took a life of its own, that I had to create stories and make sure there was room for her. And that character was so fun to write because whatever came to my mind, I put on paper. And so after Guilty of Love, there was Not Guilty, Still Guilty. You could see how creative I was with the title because I really did not prepare for that. But after that, Moody picked up the series and they changed it to the Jameson Legacy, which really fits. But as a new author, there's so many things I didn't even consider. And so from there, the story was about the brothers. And it's to the point where I had to start listing all the kids in the books, because even though people were keeping up with them, they're like, oh yeah, I remember Cammy, I remember, blank, blank, blank. And so I try to keep the title in conjunction with the Guilty series, like Accomplices in Love, which the title originally was supposed to be with them going behind people's back and being accomplices for their love story. And as I was writing it, it really turned out to be more, everybody was pulling for them and everybody became an accomplices, wanting to see them thrive.
Oh, okay. Okay. That
Mhm.
makes sense.
Right, but it didn't make sense. Sometimes the stories don't make sense, but I have all these, like the acquittal, the guilt trip, free from guilt, the confession, the guilty generation, Queen surrender, all of those have names that, are like partners in crime. Don't know what the next book is. I had to think carefully about a title, but these are just some trademarks of the Jameson legacy. They know they're going to get history. My history is true, fictional characters, but I try to put in as much history as far as them being the 10th generation descendant. So long ago, one person read my book. She said she had never heard of Juneteenth. This was way before it became a holiday. Let's see, what is it? Woman Queen or Woman King?
The
I
Woman
t-
King.
Mhm.
Yes, I talk about that group of ladies in my book. So I do my research even before it becomes popular. So people expect, the character of the Jameson, strong Black men, sassy, strong Black women, God in the middle. They expect the history. They expect the family game night. And so when I do promote it on social media, I always hashtag family saga because it is a family saga. And in this book, you see what real family means. When you need somebody, I got you, cuz. And what's important to you becomes important to them.
One thing I can say as I'm listening to you talk about these characters and these stories, you're very passionate. And that passion is reflected in the way that you write the stories.
Thank you.
So, and I think because these characters have lasted or have stood the test of time, you feel like you really know these people and you can talk about them with such passion because you've gotten to know them. They're like a friend to you.
They are. And someone interviewed me and they said, well, which one would be your best friend? I said, that is such a hard question to answer. But there's Queen and then there's Queen Bee. So they would be my friends because not only are they sophisticated, they are the chocolate sisters that know they look good, they're confident, and they're the ones that would say, if they were unsaved, I'll cut you. They are the ones, you know. And so, but they know what they want. And I always tell people there's no male bashing in my books. If you want male bashing, there's plenty of books on the shelves for that. I have been married for 41 years, so I know about good men, and I'm
Yes.
thankful. And so that's what I want to write about, are the good men that get overlooked. And if you're on Instagram, it's this group called something about the Black father game or something like that, but it shows what all these Black fathers do. But I think it's the Black dad game or something. And I follow them and they just show how passionate they are with their kids and the things that they would do for their kids, especially girl dads. That's real popular, and it shows, them dressing up, doing the cheers with their daughters. And so, that's that positive image of our Black family that I try to put in my books. And so you're right, people do know my characters. If Park or any of his brothers would cheat on their wives, they're like, well, hold up, what? That's not the Park I know. They know their personalities.
Right.
That they're like, Park would never do that. Park, and so this week I was in my Facebook group and I had a research question and I had to premise it before you guys ask. I've been married 41 years, so this does not pertain to me, but I need to know about how long it takes to get a divorce. And people were like, uh-oh, who's getting a divorce? Please tell me it's none of the Jamesons. No, it's none of the Jamesons. But that's how invested they are. And I'm thankful that I can give people a positive image. Now, do I bring the drama? I want to say I bring real life.
Yes.
I bring real life.
Mhm.
And even in this book, I'm dealing with real issues. They start on a college campus, they fall in love, Pace, which is Park Jameson the eighth, Pace, just doesn't take the job in St. Louis, but moves to Chicago where he know he can get a job as an engineer just to be able to nurture a relationship with his sister's best friend. Well, she couldn't get a job. She tried. And so when a job came, it wasn't in Chicago. And so she has to make a decision. She says, I'm too young to fall in love. You got your job. This is my dream job. But you know how we have to say, be careful what you pray for? Because she prayed for this job. She thought this was her job. There were problems on that job. So, I'm tackling, be careful what you pray for. But I'm also tackling, how do you depend on God in the darkest hours? Can you trust him? And he couldn't move so fast. And as I was writing this, something happened and it just came out of my head. And Pace said, he's a dead man. And so Harmony says, now, let's back up. I don't want you to go to jail. I'm not talking about me. When my sister find out he's a dead man. So, it was one of those things that are real funny, but it just shows how, how passionate they are. And I thank God for giving me the stories and the message to encourage people. As a Christian fiction author, I feel, I have to pray. And I'm like, Lord, yes, I could write a romance story, but what's the message? So, one person said, and this person was erotica queen, but, I have friends with all type of authors for all kind of genres. But she said, yeah, I wrote my first Christian fiction. I said, oh my goodness. But then the Lord just let me know that I need to have an answer when people write that it's more than just clean books.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise anyone can write and you can write whatever you want. But the Lord just let me know I have to define what I write. And so that taught me a lesson that I can tell people I write to draw people to Christ.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you're already walking with Christ, I write to encourage you to stay with Christ. See,
Yes.
God challenged me on what I write.
That's a good mission.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
I really didn't know it at first. It just fell in. Yeah, I write Christian fiction, inspiration. But God, when she said that, and I don't deny anybody's faith walk,
Mm-hmm.
but God just let me know you need to know what your mission statement is.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think that one good thing that I picked up from what you just said is that great books can have a strong message, and a great book does not have to have drama in the respect of the no good man or the cheating man or somebody stealing or somebody gets killed or all of these things. Sometimes it could just be real life and still be a great story. When I remember when I wrote my first book, people were saying it's not enough drama in it. I'm like, everything doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes people just want to read a good story, and it doesn't have to. That doesn't mean that you need to go over to the romance realm.
Right.
A romance story has a certain formula.
Right.
But maybe if you don't want to follow that formula, you just want to tell a good story, you should be able to do that.
Right. Absolutely. And I agree. And I think that this is 24 and 22. When I came out of my prayer closet, God gave me the Intercessor series. And this is on spiritual warfare. And this has the drama, and
Did not promise, day she prayed,
she
and
prayed, and days are coming.
days are coming.
There's another one, but that comes with the drama. God told me, okay, this book is where I depend on coming out the prayer closet for the Lord to tell me what's the next scene. And as an author, you got to have an outline. You need to know how this book is going to end. You need to know. Well, with this series, I didn't know. I mean, this book alone, and this came out earlier this year. While I was praying, God told me, I'm coming for the children. So it's not unusual for God to speak to me while I'm in prayer. And then he said, I'm coming for the children. So now I'm starting to freak out. And when he told me a third time, I said, okay, God, what does this mean? And I began to write the story. And so this series here has been today's drama. And people were looking for romance. And I just told them up front, it's not about the romance. This is a message that God has. And years ago, when I was in Sunday school, I mean, we're talking about maybe I had written 3 or 4 books. And my Sunday school teacher and I, we were talking about something, and he, a dynamic Sunday school teacher. And he said, well, you're a minister. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not a minister. I'm not, God called me to pray. God ain't called me to preach. I'm not a minister. And he said, well, your writing is a ministry. That went over my head because my concept of a minister was in the pulpit,
Right.
evangelizing. I didn't get it. But then as the years went on and I began to read reviews and people were telling me, I've opened up my Bible. I've been in this situation. That scripture really helped. I said, okay, now
you
I
get
get
it.
it. But I mean, at that time, I'm like, but with this book, to God be the glory, there are no bad reviews. This series, people are like, you know what? There used to be a time when God talked to me like that. I need to get my life together. Or you know what? I am all invested in this because of and that's when I can say, Lord, that's you. But with my romance, God gives me grace, to have the romance. But my romance readers, my beta reader, she's like, but I thought they were gonna get together. And my developmental editor, I thought I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all, this ain't romance. So, I put them together at the end just to make my readers happy because the message had already the message had already been given in
Okay.
the books. But
Now,
I
those 3 books that you showed, are they like the Left Behind series? They
some
sound
people,
kind of
yeah,
like they
some
could
people
be.
have compared it to the Left Behind. And some people, I had a book club discussion this week, and they mentioned Frank Peretti. And I'm like, yeah. And it's so funny. They said, well, that got kind of scary. I said, imagine an author writing at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, is there alarm on? No, but it's not my message to give. Our world is jacked up. It is. And people wondering what is going on. What's the handwriting on the wall? So that series is to try to give people comfort and say, here's how do you respond? Here's how do you respond to what's going on?
Yeah, that's something you mentioned also. Well, a couple things you mentioned. One, the page that you follow, the Black Dads. I follow one called the Black Couple Revolution,
Oh,
and they
I like that.
show some amazing. I mean, just I don't know if everybody who posts a picture on that page has to be like dressed to the nines and made up, like perfect makeup. But there's some good looking Black people in this world. They have the couples, and then they'll have some of them. It's just the couples. Sometimes it's the families, the couples
yeah,
and
see
kids.
families. Okay.
But
And that's
beautiful,
on
beautiful.
Instagram. I'm gonna
No, it's on
follow.
Facebook. This is on
Oh,
Facebook. It's
yeah, I
called the
like to
Black
follow.
Couple Revolution.
I like
Yeah.
to follow positive, just
Yeah.
positive
Yeah. And
stories.
Yes.
it really it brightens up my day.
Well, there's I'm really enjoying seeing it. There's a huge trend of couples celebrating each other on social media now. It's not about, yeah, there are still going to be the toxic people who are talking about using each other or who should pay for what and how
Oh,
much
yeah.
should the person make. There's going to be that faction, but there are so many couples who have TikToks and Instagrams together that are celebrating just being together, celebrating taking care of each other. There's one couple, their whole platform is about how they talk to each other like they're best friends. There's another couple who they do all kinds of cute things together. There was one where the girl was about to do her nails and he snatched her up and threw her, and then she landed in the pedicure chair, and he gave her his credit card, said, I don't know what you think this is. Little things like that.
There's
Because
one on TikTok where
yeah.
the husband is the police officer.
Mhm.
Have you seen that?
I don't
And
think I've seen that.
No.
he shows up at the door with a warrant from the judge to search the house because I'm getting notifications there's a lot of Amazon packages being delivered and I need to search the premises. And I followed them and they are just so cute. And she was in her car driving and she gets pulled over and it's him. It's like, keep your hands on the wheel. My hands are on the wheel. And it's like, you left home. Well, why am I being stopped? Because you left home without giving me a kiss. And
Okay.
so she reaches up, keep your hands on my wheel. And she reaches over and give him a kiss. And then he's like, yeah, I got my kiss, my dad. They are just so cute.
Okay. Yeah,
Just so
it's good.
cute.
It's good to have some positivity
Yeah.
on social media because there's lots and lots of toxic stuff. And something else that you mentioned about being married for 41 years. I'm at 32, but um I only have 2 novels. I have 15 books, but I only have 2 novels. And I tell people in my novels, it's the same couple, so it's a sequel. But
Okay.
the couples, they get along, they support each other, they believe in each other. They're all of the drama and the friction and all of it comes from the outside. And so they have to be together to fight that what's coming at them.
Right.
So I'm not gonna, I said it's enough books where the husband and wife don't get along and they're fighting and cheating and, it's enough of those. And it's drama. I know, I get it. And sometimes I read it's very entertaining, but I don't want to write that. So I hear you about that because, it can, even fiction can inspire people.
This is why I write fiction, so I can inspire people. I mean, I don't ever want to tell just my story. I don't think I even want to write my memoirs, but I will take different aspects of my observations, different aspects of things that I've experienced, and I will build a story around those because I still want to inspire people with my fiction. I just don't want to come out and tell my story, so to speak.
Yeah,
But
and
there's a
inform.
part of us in everything we write.
Yeah,
It is. People
absolutely.
ask me, "Is this character you? Is this character you?" And I say, "Well, there might be some aspects of my thinking in different characters, but
Mhm.
they are all fictional people.
Right.
They're made up. They're part of my imagination, and I'm not fiction is like a boulder moving up a hill for me. So it takes me years to finish, but it's a solid story when it gets done.
Right. Well, one thing I've learned, my Jamesons, they've become real people where people have asked me. But I think anything you read can inspire you in a good way or in a bad way.
That's
And
true.
I just feel if you spend your money and you take your time, let me give you something that can help
Yes.
you.
Yes, it is such a disrespect to the people who spent their hard-earned money on your book and then you don't try to give them your best.
Something. Yes, something. And if there's mistakes in my book or you don't like something, at least I know I've given you the best that I could. And
Mhm.
that's all you can
Yeah,
do is give your best.
that's
But
true.
God has taken me out of this romance realm with these spiritual books, and I have to listen to him because I was working on the one that comes out in 2025. And God has a hit list of these people that his intercessors have to find and bring them to salvation. So I'm out. I'm out of my realm where this couple is getting the divorce that I had to ask, people in my Facebook group now, how long is the process for divorce? I mean, just out of my comfort zone. And so as a Christian author, I'm thankful that I can listen to him and say, Lord, what's the message? Because
Mhm.
you do want people to walk away saying, that character that overcame drug addiction, or that character whose husband, or that character, I see my purpose. You know, I see my purpose.
Absolutely.
Well, we're at the end of our time. I do want to give you a little bit of feedback from people who are watching the interview. A
Oh.
couple of people just said where they were watching from. Good evening from California. Good evening from Chicago. One person said something about Grandma BB. Is that one of your characters?
With the Stacey Adams shoes, yes.
Grandma BB has her own fan club. That's what Angela Anderson said. So,
Oh, yeah.
so she's watching. And so if you could let people know your website and how they can connect with you on social media.
Sure. My website is patsimmons.net. And while you're there, please sign up for my newsletter. You get a free ebook when you do. My social media, I am on TikTok, and I am feverishly trying to get to 1,000 followers so I can do live on TikTok. And I'm on TikTok under Christian author Pat Simmons without the S, because I ran out of space. So they wouldn't let me put the S. So it's Christian author Pat Simmons, and S ain't there. On Instagram, I'm author Pat Simmons. On TikTok or X, I'm Pat Simmons. And on Facebook, I think my group is Pat Simmons Readers. But I'm everywhere, I guess you could say.
Okay. Well, Pat, it was good seeing you again. Hopefully it won't be 3 years in between the next interview, but good luck with your book that's coming out next year. And thanks for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we are moving right along, and something when she was talking, it reminded me of when we were in New York and in the bar. See, this is and we were kind of being accosted by somebody.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, I've been married for 32 years. These are not words that I'm used to. So anyway, so it reminded me of that. But anyway,
yeah, don't remind me of that moment, please.
I know that was interesting. I'll put it like that. So our next guest is Charity Shanae. She has Charity Lanier on the screen, but
I didn't even change that.
Yeah. Her pen name is Charity Shanae, and Charity is with Black Odyssey Media, which is Entice's imprint, and we've had several authors on the show that are under the Black Odyssey Media umbrella. As a matter of fact, Entice will be at the National Black Book Festival. She normally brings a couple of her authors with her, but I don't know who she's bringing. And she's doing the seminar on how to turn a book into a film. So Charity, you are an author, a lawyer, and a higher education leader. And you also write fiction, apparently. So welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you, ladies. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for being here tonight.
We're doing well. So, Charity, give us some background. Now, you have a book coming out. I think the date got moved.
It's today.
It came out today. Okay.
Yes.
Because what
is it with Black Odyssey Media? They always have their authors come on the show on the exact day of their release date.
Well, see, I asked them to do that. So
yeah, but it's always very specific. I love it.
Yeah, sometimes they're not available, but mostly they're available because we want them to get off to the best start with letting people know that their book has come out and to boost their sales right in that first week or two, first couple of weeks. So your book is actually a holiday book.
Yes. It's they did a rash of Christmas releases today. So it's actually 3 of them on Black Odyssey. Mine is a novel Christmas.
Okay, a novel Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's some other ones, and we're having some of the other authors on later in the next few weeks. So
Okay.
how did you go from lawyer and higher education leader to fiction writer?
So, in undergrad, my major was English, and religion. So I've always had a passion for literature. I think what happened was, and that was years ago, my favorite class was Black women writers, and I took that at the University of Florida. And I was just enthralled with that class. I read every genre, and they were all by Black women writers. So, and I really appreciate that, but I never thought I could write. I wrote papers, they did well, because, once you make up your mind by like sixth grade, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I was going to law school, so that was the track that I was on, which I did. I went to law school. I did that, and then I became dean of a college. I started out as a program director of legal studies of law, and then been a dean, and I've been a dean for 20 years. And I think COVID kind of just made a lot of us. I was stuck at home for a little bit during COVID. The school went where we were at home in school, and my employer may not like this, but when you work from home, you have more time. I mean, nobody works the whole 8 hours, and I don't care what anybody says. So, in that extra time, I decided, and I thought to myself, well, I've always wanted to write. Maybe I should try to write a book. And I just started. I mean, I literally just started freehand writing. And before I knew it, I had 85K and I had a story. And I was like, well, I'll pitch it, send it out and see if anybody will pick it. One of my favorite writers is Casey Mills, and she has her publishing company, KMP Publications. And I reached out to her, and never in 3 million years that I think her or anybody would respond, but they did. She reached out. We had a long conversation, and I wanted to do it. That was 2.5, almost 3 years would be December when my first book came out. So I just made a change. I think it was just a passion that I already had, and I reached a point where I decided that I'm going to act on it, and that's just what I did.
Nice. So
Mhm.
you made a plan, you executed that plan, and then you saw it through.
Absolutely. It's
That's
not
the
a
way
true
I'm
plan
talking
if you
about.
don't do that. If you don't do that, you're just making hopes and wishes. Okay.
There
Yeah,
you
there is
go.
a big difference between wishing and planning.
Yes.
So and a lot of people are dreaming and planning. A lot of
Absolutely.
people are dreamers, but there's no execution. And
Yeah.
so without execution, a dream is just a dream. That's all it is.
And
And
if you do it and you get a no, you're just in the same spot. So why not just try for the yes, especially if it's something that you want. So
Mm-hmm.
that's true and very good advice. Now, I have a question. You said you took Black women writers in college.
mhm.
Which writers did that? Was it this one, like a one semester course?
Yeah, it was. My
Okay.
teacher, she was so profound, was Dr. Deidre Crumbley. She had wrote a Black womanist book about Black feminism. It was that. I think one of my favorite books was Dessa Rose, and it was about it's when I first discovered historical fiction and a Black turn on it. So I've read historical fiction before, but that was the first time I kind of saw it. Besides Roots, and Roots is not fiction, so we had the real books. But my first interaction with historical fiction was a book she assigned as Dessa Rose, and when she took the life of a slave girl who her master would breed her and then would dig a hole and put her stomach in it, and an abolitionist, and she made a fictional story and made a meat. So that story was like one of my favorite stories, but we read every genre in that course. Before it started, we had a list of 25 books before you could even get into the course, and then you had to sit down with the professor and interview before you get led into the class. So
Oh, okay. Wow.
mhm.
Was this at the undergraduate level or
Yeah,
graduate?
undergraduate, University of Florida. Yeah, but it was a 4,000 level English class, so you had to be a senior and you had to read the reading list before you can get into the class.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sounds fun.
Interesting.
It
I've been
was.
thinking about taking some classes. I just want to, brush up on my writing. I think it's always good for authors and future authors and even experienced authors to
Mhm.
take a class. There are a lot of things that we take for granted that we don't think
Absolutely.
about until we take a class like this.
Absolutely. It's never too late to learn. I say you should learn something new every day. So,
Absolutely. What is
mhm.
something that you learned in that class that you may not have thought about before or may have
Um,
surprised
just taking the voice that you have in writing. It's such a powerful voice, and books just can open you up to that. And again, those profound books that I read that did the historical fiction, I thought, and these are Black women taking our stories, retelling them, and giving us heroines that I hadn't seen before. So just being able to see that that's possible, it was very eye-opening for me. So I think that was the biggest thing, that you can rewrite history. I mean, you can do a lot with the pen. So
You can
That's true.
create other worlds and, you know, all kinds of characters and places and situations, and you know, you can determine the outcome of something. You can make someone a
Absolutely.
hero or a villain. You know, you can just create all of that in fiction, which really is enjoyable to do.
Hmm.
I like writing it, but it just takes me a long time. So now you said you had your first book. This isn't your first book.
no, this is book
Okay.
number 26.
Oh,
But
you
this
did
is
all
my
that
first book.
right.
But this is my first book with Black Odyssey. So
Right,
yeah.
right. I know
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
okay, you didn't write all these since COVID, did you?
Yes, I did that in
Oh
two and a
my
half years.
goodness.
Yeah. My head was
Okay.
full of stories.
Clearly. Now, are they all full-length novels or some of them novellas or?
One, two, three. I have 4 novellas and the rest are full. I'm
Okay.
long-winded, and I literally, I'm long-winded, and my imagination is wild. You know, my cousins would say growing up, I used to tell stories all the time. I told them I was developing my artistic mind back then, and I just didn't even know it. So listen, I still have a whole lot of stories up here. So I mean, I literally have notebooks all over my house where an idea would come to me. So I've just been lucky that they've been consistent. So I think that would be the day that my heart breaks, when I stop thinking of a story. So.
Oh, that's a lot of
So,
writing in a
so
short period
you
of time.
have notebooks all over the place. So no matter where you are, if an idea strikes, you're about to write it down.
Yeah, and if I'm out and don't have my notebook and my notes in my phone, it's ridiculous. So
I tell
yeah,
people that all the time.
I
I
do
yeah.
use
that.
the notes
I
in my
use my
phone
notes
all
in
the
my
time.
phone.
Just
Yeah, if I'm
record
out,
myself talking.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I'm out and about, I use the notes too. But
absolutely.
I have sticky notes in places everywhere too. Not necessarily for ideas. It's more things I need to do. And I
Oh
don't,
yeah.
you know, in the next couple of days, and I need to, especially now where the National Black Book Festival is coming up, it's a lot of things I need to do.
Can
So I
imagine.
have to write them down. But now all of your books through who do you self-publish or you indie or
I'm under KMP, Casey Mills Publications. Yeah, I'm
oh
under
okay.
KMP.
Oh okay. Okay. So the rest of them are under her.
Yes,
Okay.
under
Yeah.
KMP.
Okay. So are they what genre would you consider them to be?
I'm gonna say, I would just say African American Black romance. So I may have a little suspense in the book, I may have a paranormal, but at the heart of every one of my book is gonna be Black love, no matter where I
Nice.
place it. So that will be in every story. So
We were just talking about love in books and with the last guest, Pat. And
mhm.
we were saying I was mentioning to her, she said she does not do any man bashing in her books. She wants a good story to be a good story without it having to include cheating or things like that. How do you look at relationships in your books?
So usually if it's my main character, the main one, he doesn't cheat, but the woman may have had past relationships where that happened to her. But my male lead is never gonna be a cheater because I'm portraying Black love. So I typically will have a successful woman, a successful man. They may come from different walks of life or issues, but I'm always showing positive, strong Black relationships. My men love on their women, will do anything for them, and will go to hell and back for them. And that is what I portray, because every Black woman needs to be loved that way, honey. So that's what I try to write.
Well, Casey Mills is watching and she commented and she said, and you dream about stories which you need to write, but your hands don't move fast enough.
And that's true, because I would tell her when I have a dream, and she's like, "Well, you need to write that." I'm like, "Well, I got 4 more ahead of that, so I gotta fix it ahead of time." So I just make all of my notes and put it out there till I'm ready to write it. So
Okay, now are all of these books, are any of them part of a series, or are they standalones, or
Yeah, the
I'm
majority
curious
are
about
standalones, but I do have 3 series. But other than that, they're standalones. Yes. And the 3 series are just 2 books apiece.
it. Okay,
Yes.
that's a lot of writing
It
in a
is.
time.
It
I'm
is.
amazed. But you're not the first person that has said that they had that many books in 4 years, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
so it's just that's just a lot of stories.
It
So
is.
so what are some of your other titles? Just give us a
Um,
couple. Do you have any of your other books handy? What did
I didn't have them handy, but
Okay.
I do. One of my popular books is my 180 series, and it's 180 and 182. I have my spousal privilege series, which is spousal privilege and justified privilege. And then I've created a fictional army base, and I have 2 stories in that, Under Love's Command and Absent Without Love.
I
Those are
like
some
that title,
popular.
Under Love's Command, by the
Okay.
way. That's
Yeah,
nice.
thank you. I should have brought my other books, but and then even with this Christmas book, I'm excited about A Novel Christmas. As I mentioned, sometimes my characters may be broken in a little piece, but they heal each other through love. That's kind of what happens in this one because it's a widowed firefighter and a African American fiction writer who has been tasked by her publishing company to write a holiday book because her sales aren't the best. And she has been adamant she's never going to do a holiday book. But her publishing company says, listen, your sales haven't been what they want, holiday sales. You are going to have to write me a holiday book. I need ideas in the next couple of months. And so she packs up her city life in Miami. She Googles the most Christmassy place in the world and finds Santa Claus, Indiana, and books an Airbnb and heads that way so she can get some Christmas inspiration. But she ends up finding this sexy fireman. So the widowed fireman in this little bitty town, Santa Claus, Indiana, which is real, and it's Christmas times 1,000 in the town. So
Okay, so you put a writer as your main character, and
yes,
then you found. Now, did you know about Christmas, Indiana before writing the book?
just like the author did in my book, I said, "Where's the most Christmas town in the world?" And Santa Claus, Indiana,
Okay,
popped up when I googled it. Yes.
okay, okay. Did you
So,
go visit it, or you just kind of research the town?
I researched it. It is so small. It's by Lincoln, Indiana, like another small town. It's very small, but it's popular because kids send their, I didn't know this, but their letters to Santa Claus, Indiana.
Oh,
And the post and the people in the town actually volunteer every year and answer those letters and mail them off from their post office. So they've embraced their whole Christmas theme in the town. So,
oh,
Nice.
okay.
mhm.
So I guess we have to read it to find out how the fireman gets there. Um, how he ends up in this little tiny town, tiny Christmas town. But that's now, did you name it A Novel Christmas, or did the publisher name it that? Because
It was,
it really does fit with the
yeah.
author's theme going through the storyline.
It was a collective effort. I gave 3 titles. This was my first choice, and thank God they picked that one. But I gave them a total of 3, and they settled on my first choice. So it was collective. I just thought it was just perfect because she's writing a Christmas novel. So
Right. It's really like a play on words.
yes.
Yeah. So, oh, that's and so now this is your first. Is this your first holiday themed book?
Oh no, so I've done last year with KMP, our group did Black Cowboys for Christmas. So we did a collection, Miller's Point Christmas, which is a Black cowboy town that we created. So I did that. And then the year before we did a Crescent Falls Christmas in another town that we created. So no, this is my third Christmas book actually. So I actually love writing holiday romances because it's Christmas. Who doesn't want to fall in love at Christmas?
Yeah, I love Christmas stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've ever read one. I'm
Oh,
trying
well,
to.
you need to read a novel
Yeah, you're right. I don't. I don't read a lot of romances.
I like Christmas
And
movies, I
so
should say, though. I like Christmas
Yeah.
movies, but I can imagine Christmas stories are pretty similar to a Christmas movie.
Yeah, a good one will make you feel like you're watching a movie. So it works
Yeah,
out. Mm-hmm.
give you all the
so
feels.
Yeah.
So when you write a Christmas story, do you start it like, is it a short window in terms of the timeline for the story? Does it like everything happens in that October to the Christmassy period, or
Yeah.
does it span longer and Christmas just ends up being a focal point with one of the arcs of the story?
I usually do it within a week or two of Christmas. So it's the leading up to the holiday, it's Christmas itself.
Okay.
Because if anybody's like me, I'm Christmas starting December 1st. So I try to do a week or two before Christmas where you get the characters leading up to it, the weather, the shopping sometimes, the family traditions. I'm really big on family. So a lot of times it's leading up to it. Because some people do stuff on Christmas Eve. And so it's typically for me a week or two before Christmas. A novel Christmas is the week of Christmas. She gets there on a Sunday, and I think Christmas is like Thursday, so it's doing Christmas week. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's a short timeline for the
Yeah.
story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It takes place within a short period of time.
Yes.
Okay. So do you still practice law?
No, I mean, but that can never be taken away from me. So I got caught up in education. I went from teaching law and just fell in love with it. I still teach it to keep me, abreast of it. And I will lend my legal advice when needed, but my main focus has been education, higher education for the past 20 years. So
Nice.
being a dean of a college kind of allowed me to, my job as a dean is all compliance, which the legal background really helps on that. And then being able to
Okay.
teach the legal classes, it lets me have my dual passions of education and law at the same time.
Okay. So
Mhm.
when you got your law degree, did you pick a specialty of some kind, like
It was
area
criminal defense. Criminal defense.
criminal defense?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So were you ever a public defender? Or
Yeah,
was
that's actually
that
what I interned my first year in law school. It's the best way to get the most experience is working in the public defender's office because you are 100 cases. So that was my first experience was in a PD's office.
yeah, and plus it's a lot of different kinds of cases.
Yeah, you get a ride. You can go from
The
the
gamut.
most minimum in the morning to about late afternoon, something serious. Yeah, because they are definitely overworked and underpaid. So,
Yes, they are. And
mhm.
and unfortunately for people who can't afford, separate legal counsel, a lot of those are played down just because of in the essence of time, just because the defender is overwhelmed with work, so they don't have time to try the cases like individually as much.
Yeah, and it also depends on the passion and heart of the PD. A lot of times they get a bad rep, but if you got one that ultimately really cares about their clients, you will have one that'll fight all the way. So it's not the department as a whole, it's truly the people's heart who's doing the job, as with anything, to be honest. So people, they get a bad name a lot of times, but a true PD who wants to beat the state every time and make sure that everybody gets a fair trial, they'll do their job to the utmost. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's the bad rap as far as I think it's more they're just overworked. I mean,
Oh
they're
yeah,
just
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
overwhelmed
people
with the
assume, yeah.
caseload. You can only do
Mhm.
so much. There's only so many hours in a day, and you do have to sleep.
Mhm.
So
What
so
is sleep?
I, I commend people who take because that's not a high paying position,
No, it
and
isn't.
um I applaud people who are willing to do that, and even for a certain period of time, just
Yeah.
to help people. So, what do you see in terms of planning for your future books, in terms of your writing for the next year or two? What do you have on that?
Well,
On
I already
plate?
have like two books that I've committed to doing. So they'll be coming out in the first of the year. It's so funny. I always set like a goal. I want to do 4 books this year, 5, and next thing I know it's 7 or something. But I have again a million stories. I've put some to the forefront, but to be honest, I can have that plan all out like I want to. But if I start writing it and I'm not feeling it, I'm gonna jump to the next one. So, but I do have what I think my first 2 for the year planned out, which will be a sports romance and a second chance romance story. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's the beginning of the year. For the remainder of the year, I'm doing a Black romance project. And then I think I'm gonna do a Christmas short aside from this one, which is crazy, with one of my characters in my other book. So, but we'll see. But definitely the sports romance and second chance the beginning of the year. And then I have a couple of other ones that I want to do. I do want to dabble in historical fiction myself, but I don't know when I'll do that. So
That takes a
oh,
lot of dedication.
oh, that one does. But
And
I
he
do
said,
also have, I forgot, I do have my second Black Odyssey book that'll be coming out next year, which is a legal suspense book. That will be coming out
oh,
next year.
okay,
I finished that this year and it comes out next year. I don't know how I can forget about that. And it's called Malicious. So that'll be coming out next year.
okay. So you have another book with Black Odyssey Media.
Yeah.
So you had a 2-book deal with them?
Oh, it started off as one and then I got the second one, so they didn't come at the same time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes, when Mr. Shearer came up with the idea for the Christmas holiday romance stories, that's when I got in. And so and then after that, then I was offered the second book. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's a lot. So are you still writing with KMP too?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Let
So
me
do
put
you
this out here. KC Mills can't get rid of me. So I'm gonna put it so this is recorded. This is recorded, so it's there. Yeah.
so she said you keep your book accurate from a legal aspect.
Oh
So
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine. We're gonna have it right, and if it's anything legal in the book, it's gonna be right. Absolutely.
That's true, because if you're writing I mean you can make some things up in terms of
Snippets, yeah,
characters, but the law part of it,
Yeah,
you
you've
don't
got to
want
make
to
sure
have
that's right.
misinformation.
yeah,
If for no other reason, then somebody who knows the law is going to be reading your story and they're going to poke holes in your story if you don't know what you're talking about.
and that is me as a reader. So, amen. That is me as a reader. So while we can be fiction, some things we just cannot fictionalize in a certain sense.
That's funny, but that
Yeah.
is true. You seem like you're one of the readers, kind of like me. When I'm reading something, I'll run across something and say, okay, this isn't accurate.
Yeah,
Whatever the factually is not
yeah,
accurate.
right.
Some things you can make up, but some things you really
Yeah,
need to
you can't, right.
need to be
It's a
accurate.
fine line, yes.
It is. So I'm just congratulations on just being so prolific with your writing. Once you got it going, and did you have some books before you did the first book in during COVID? Did you like already have some books in the can, like already written, and you just never like pull the trigger on them, or had them half written, or did you just like get out of the gate with and just took off like a racehorse
I mean,
and kept
I
going?
in college, when I was taking a Black Writers class, I wrote a book and printed it up on my brother word processor, and it floated around the dorm. So I don't really count that. So I have that. It kind of passed amongst the other students. But no, when I wrote this first book here, it was just out of the gate when I was like, I'm going to write a book. And then I just started thinking about it. And so once my mind went in, I'm going to write a book, ideas kept coming to me. And then, of course, I had a detailed dream. And when I woke up and remembered the dream, I was like, oh, yeah. It doesn't be like, when I say detail, I usually see like a scene here or there, and then I just paste it together. But I wrote down those key things like, oh, it's going to be like 2 or 3 scenes that I visualized. And I started writing. And of course, I thought it was the best thing in the world, but it wasn't. It needed a lot of revision. But my publisher worked with me and mentored me, and because I was an English major, so I write as such. And
Mhm.
so people don't want to read research papers; they want to read fictional
Right.
stories. So
Right.
that I just had to adapt my voice to that, and that was easy. Just listening to her, listening to what the reader said and the editor, and then reading more myself. I always say
Mhm.
I have to if I'm going to write Black African American romance, I need to read a lot of those books too, because to make sure and I could hear it. But I think the best advice she gave me was when you finish it, listen to it. And it makes so much sense because if I wrote it, if I'm reading it, I'm going to self-correct what I see. But when I hear it, my brain won't let me self-correct it, because that voice reading it back to me, I will hear the mistakes and hear the repetition of words, or hear how choppy that sentence was. And so once I started listening to my writing, I was able to improve it. But I think with each book I improve, and that's the goal. So my first book, probably cringe a little bit, probably if I read it, but that's the goal. If you're not improving as you write, then I mean, that's with anything that you do, you want to improve it each way you go.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're at the end of our time. So Charity, if you can let people know your website, if you have one, and then how people can connect with you on social media.
All right, so most of my books are ebooks on Amazon, but the actual paperbacks are on my website, which is www.authorcharityshanae.com. And I'm everywhere on social media as Author Charity Shanae. So that's on Facebook, that's on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Author Charity Shanae. It just makes it very easy to find me. And that's why my website is authorcharityshanae.com as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, we put your website in the chat. So everybody, y'all know what to do. Get out there and support these books.
Yes, and today, please go pick up A Novel Christmas. It's on Audible, it's on paperback, and it's on Amazon ebook, so you can get it for your Kindle. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can download it with your subscription. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and congratulations on Pup Day.
Thank you guys so much. I had a blast.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
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 Okay, so our next guest, we're right along. Our next guest is a poet and an author, and she will be at the National Black Book Festival as one of the participating authors.
Yay.
Yay. And her name is J.W. Young. So we're waiting on her to come on screen. And when she comes on, and actually our final guest is also one of the participating authors. So you'll get to meet, if you get to come to the festival, you'll get a chance to meet both of them. So I see that the camera, okay, there you go, there you go. Hello, okay.
Hello, ladies.
Hello, so welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, J.W. Young.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here.
Age on the screen, so that's so people will know who you are. Your name is J.W. Young. So first of all, tell us how you became a poet and started writing poetry, and what kind of poetry do you write? Just give us some backstory on that.
Sure. Well, yes, my name is J.W. Young. I actually, at a very young age, I left my version of paradise to live I was sent to live in a polar opposite type of town in the South. I began writing poetry during that time when I was really young to cope with racism and sexual abuse and being alone. And it was really a means to express myself and to stop hiding in my pain. So in about my early 20s, I decided to move from that place and create a better life for myself. So I left the violence, I left the trauma of my school years behind. I packed up my car, and I admit it was tough on the road, but nothing really prepared me for what was ahead. Really difficult situations, living in dangerous areas, lots of homelessness, gun blasts coming through the windows, those kinds of things. But all the while, I had to endure an abusive and violent marriage. So anytime I was caught writing, an argument would ensue. And so a lot of my writing at that time was destroyed. So again, it was just a coping mechanism. It continued on through my marriage. And because a lot of the writing was destroyed, censorship is a real central theme of my book and my poems and my writings, especially at that time period. So I self-published my book of poems and writings that I had, survived that time. And that became my first book, Marriage 2001, A Bruised Odyssey, which was released this year. I self-published that, which was a real accomplishment. In that time period, I lost my press. to represent the unheard, the unsung, and the unpublished. And I actually have now transitioned my writing away from trauma-focused nonfiction to a speculative fiction, horror fiction, which I think is a positive reflection of the changes I'm making in my life now. So I'm actually weaving in like recitative poetry and other things into my fiction works. And in the last few months, my works have been recognized, the top 5 finalists in the Hugo Berge Fellowship for Spoken Word Poetry. Also, I was featured in the inaugural Juneteenth issue of the Flavor Zine with a poem that I wrote for young Black women and young Black girls. And I was also recently invited to the Los Angeles Midsummer Poetry Fest, and I've got a lot of book shows and appearances coming up as I'm writing my next books, which is number 1, a cookbook, but also the horror fiction and crime fiction collection. So a lot going on about how I got here to poetry. It's been my voice, it's been my vehicle, you know, and it's my voice of endurance. And now I'm using it to kind of be a window of reflection into where I'm going and changing away from the trauma to now a new beginning.
But now, did I hear you say cookbook? That's a pretty big departure, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I was writing a lot of things when I was in that 20+ year relationship. Everything that I have now that I'm saying that I'm going to write, I started it back in 2001. And so, yeah, cookbook was just another thing that I did to cope and help me heal. It was so comforting. And I learned a new way of cooking because I'm gluten-free, dairy-free as well. And so the cookbook that's coming out is all about, you know, Southern cooking, Louisiana classics, gumbo, jambalaya, you know,
Love
honey
it.
fried chicken, but it's all like gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free. So yeah, it's a bit of a departure, but
It tastes free.
representative. Yeah, exactly. It's what was going on at the time, you know, so.
Rhonda's taste free. You know, we just well, Rhonda's from New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm from New Orleans, so you know my ears perked up when I heard
Yeah,
that.
she did. And
All
I
right,
went
that's
there.
great.
When did I get? That was the end of July when I went there and had the
wow.
amazing Louisiana food. You know, we have a lot of
Okay.
Louisiana food in Houston, in Texas in general, because I think
Sure.
half the state of Louisiana moved here over time between
Right.
Katrina and just proximity. So we have lots of Louisiana food. But I will say, when you eat it in New Orleans, it has a different.
It's a whole different vibe.
It is.
It
It's
is.
authentic. You can and I asked for the authentic restaurants. So Rhonda, she took me to a couple. Then someone else, I forgot to tell you, I ate at Fleur de Lis or Florida.
Fleur de Lis?
Yes, I ate
Okay.
breakfast there on Sunday before I left, and that was good.
Oh, okay.
It was
I
walking
haven't eaten
distance
there.
from the
Usually
hotel.
when I go to breakfast in New Orleans, I like to go to the Ruby Slipper.
Okay. Yeah, it was in walking
Good
distance
one.
from the hotel. So that's why I ended up, it was like 2 blocks away. So they directed me there. And it was good. It was good, good
Okay.
food, good service. But now you have for you that have been writing about trauma and all of the things that you said you experienced, you have a big old smile on your face. And there must be something internal that allows you to smile through all you've been through.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it was an emotional journey. I mean, all the writings that were penned in the book, whether they were poems or journal entries, you know, they were, you know, under duress. And so it's not really reflective like a memoir. So because it was my coping strategy back then, it was so freeing to actually publish it. You know, I was still dealing with it mentally. You know, there's a lot of focus out there on mental health issues, but you know, you're just kind of ruminating on it, chewing on it like a, you know, a cow, you know, and you never really get rid of it. You never digest it. You never really let it go. And so the smile on my face has really just been starting my own publishing company, unpacking all those journals, all these fiction works in progress along the way. They've been packed away for decades, you know, brown-eared and, you know, just old line type from, you know, the 1990s. So when I finally decided to share and publish my experiences again, it was like seeing them for the first time, but it freed me. It was so healing. And so I've now connected with others who are use journaling as a healing vehicle. And so that's a smile on my face to have known that I endured it. The book is proof. And now I get to share the experiences with others to hopefully maybe they can avoid some of those same situations or find that there are some coping strategies until you can just get out of that situation, which is exactly what's necessary. And a lot of times, intimate partner violence, it affects 1 in 3 women, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, or mental abuse.
Yes.
So a lot of people are going through it. And so to be able to be here today, that's a smile like no other. I can't even begin to share that with you to survive. And so to actually have my voice and to reclaim my voice is really, that's where that smile is from. And I know that there's someone out there that may be struggling with the same thing. And maybe I'm a bright light so they can also see the end, that there is a smile and a beautiful day at the end of it all.
Well, those are very heartfelt words. Um, is your poetry like, for lack of a better term, a memoir in terms of your experience, or does it reflect more your hopefulness to get beyond your experience?
I think it's a good mixture of both. There's times in there where it's, for example, it was kind of a blessing when I get to put my pen to the paper at the time. So I have an example, like a poem that's called Trying Again. And it begins with, "This is the third time I've left. Is it my destiny to return?" Where I get to ponder these questions. I was really isolated in that situation. So the poems is both, it's my experiences for survival and kind of my outlet of frustration, but that hope, it's always that hope that I'll get through the next day, or I've learned something, or I can apply myself, positively in this marriage, in this relationship, to the point where you turn the corner and I realize in the book that I've got to get out. But yeah, it's me constantly trying to deal with the situations of raising my son, reclaiming myself, trying to see myself my way out of this relationship and truly to become self-sufficient. So a lot of those were just those things, just really dealing with it.
Hmm. So do you perform your poetry, or is it mostly for people to read?
I've not yet performed my poetry. That's a wonderful question. One of the things, as I mentioned, I was transitioning from this trauma literature and trauma poetry to now like speculative fiction, crime fiction, horror fiction. And so what I've found is I've begun to weave poetry into my fiction. So for example, I just wrote this short story collection. It's called The Package. And it's this frustrated main character woman who is very upset with the neighborhood, and she goes on she's getting ready to go on a killing spree. She's so out of it. And so the book opens with her reciting this poetry saying, I know this is brutal, I know this is gruesome, but that's how I've kind of connected the poetry and kind of that trauma aspect to now taking it to fiction where, the intent is to put fear or instill fear in others. So now I'm kind of weaving both together. It's really fun. And it was really nice to hear some feedback from these really neat fellowships where they're saying, that's a really good way that's a lot of visual imagery, an interesting way, a diverse way to interweave those topics. And also talking about having a conscientious distance between trauma and reflection, and so that's really important for me too. But yeah, that's kind of helped me turn the corner.
I love the thought of weaving storytelling techniques in your poetry. Because as poets we are storytellers as well. And I think it's a great way to kind of hook your listener or reader, whichever one, whether you're doing spoken word or not. But it's a good way to hook them and to keep, and for them to actually better hear your message.
Right. And so that's a new venture for me, is to actually take it to the point where I perform it or I'll do spoken word. I've never done that yet. And so this recitative poetry introduction in the horror book was my very first time to go, oh, wait, that should be really, something that should be said out loud. And as I started to do a little bit of research on that methodology, it's an operatic technique, and it was originally used in Porgy and Bess, one of the greatest American operas of all time. And so that recitative manner of poetry, that's new for me. So I can't wait to take that to the stage and see where it blossoms, and maybe I'll take that next step to doing, one person play, or, maybe just, do the poetry as a spoken word performance.
Yeah, I recently read a book. It was called One Summer in Savannah by Tara Harris. She was on the show a few months back, and I read her book. And in her book, one of the main characters, well, he wasn't really a main character. I would say he was a secondary character. But anyway, it was a father, an elderly father that was suffering from dementia or like early onset Alzheimer's. And he was a poet. He taught English. And so a lot of his verbal communication was in poems. And so she wove the poetry throughout the novel. I had never read a book that did that before, and she was successful with it. So it's out there.
Nice, yes.
Yeah, that was his main way of communicating, and he was declining in health, so he was able to weave that in there. So and I hate that you're coming to the festival, and one of our managers is a horror writer, but she can't be there this year. She had got her dates mixed up. I would have loved to introduce you to her, and I will still do that. I'll send her your information. Her name is Rhonda.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
all right. Look forward to
Jackson
that.
Garcia. So
right.
she does horror. She started off.
Rhonda's good people too.
Yeah, she is. But she travels all over. She's been to Europe with the horror and speculative fiction, that whole thing. And she I think she teaches English too at the community college level. But she's really into the horror. When she does her table display, she'll have some fake candles and all the
it looks really scary. It's all black and red and everything.
That's great.
Horror motif. It's a whole different group of people. And when we had a display at the mall a couple of times where it was several of us, and she had her display, and we all had our displays. But people who read horror, they knew to come to her table, and she said, my people know me. It's a whole I don't read horror because it would scare me. I wouldn't be able to sleep. But
right.
But there's a market out there for it, and we've had several horror authors on the show.
Yes,
but it's a market. It's not a lot of Black people writing in that genre.
Right.
But there's a market for it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to turn that corner. I don't want to be the trauma lit chick, I want to be, that.
Not the trauma lit chick.
Well,
I've grown, I've evolved.
Yeah, well, it's you are right. There are women living in fear, in constant fear, on the edge. And it might not be physical abuse necessarily. For some people, it's verbal, really psychological. It's and that can be very terrorizing because you don't know what the person's going to say or do or when, or what's going to set them off. You know, you can try to
Mhm.
be compliant or whatever. It seems like the more compliant some women are, the more it sets the person off, you know.
It's very true in my experience. Absolutely. It's never enough, and so the line, first of all, it blurs and then it moves and then there's no more line in terms of boundaries. And so, that's you just have to recognize that and just kind of self-preserve. But yeah.
Yeah. Without sharing, personal information, what helped you finally become free of that?
I believe it was a couple of things. First and foremost, getting out of the situation. It is kind of a life and death situation. No matter how long it goes on, and as you said, it does get progressively worse. If you accept it, then that person has more control. In fact, recently, for me, one way to turn the corner was to think about my inspirations. And so I needed a voice, I needed an outlet to initiate change. So I always appreciated the lyrical expressions of artists like Nina Simone and Curtis Mayfield, and even Hunter S. Thompson's gonzo journalism inspired my poetry significantly. And I've been reading the autobiography of Frederick Douglass about the lack of a freedom of expression because that kept me bonded in a very violent marriage. And I wasn't able to say what was going on or seek help or even publish my own books. And those were a cost to me in my life. And so essentially, when you can't express yourself, it changes how you think. And when you can't speak your mind, you begin to censor yourself. You're censoring your own thoughts internally. You're limiting your voice. You're limiting your position in life. And your self worth and your values are affected too. So, those kinds of inspirations helped me center and say, you know what, they did it. Nina endured, Frederick endured. My people didn't come this far for me to stumble, to be strong as they were, get back up on my feet. And then finally getting out of the relationship, but then becoming financially self sufficient is important too, because a lot of times in intimate partner violence, they will keep you financially stuck as well,
Yeah.
whether they rule the money or they demand the money or whatever, and so that was important for me too, to just, figure out what I did best in life and make a business out of it. And so, for me, it was writing to contribute to magazines. I contributed to homeless magazines, women's magazines, but then now starting a publishing company so that I can publish other underrepresented writers. That really motivated me to, publish and now keep going and really be a pillar in the industry to help others to have that voice that I needed so desperately, that helped me come out of that dark place too.
Yes.
So you have
That's
other authors under
that's
your umbrella?
wonderful.
I just started reading and accepting submissions. I've got 2 submissions in, and they're both amazing. So I'm reading right now, looking to publish, if not an anthology of others this year, but 2 next year. One is another individual. He's a gay attorney out of the West Coast. He's been journaling since the 1980s, and he's got some big eye openers, bomb droppers, in his journals. And so it was so similar to what I've been through. So it was really exciting to consider his book, and I would love to launch that next year. So I'm actively looking and reading writers out there right now. So, very excited to publish others and give them a chance to express themselves, give them a chance that's not restricted, give them a chance to be a part of history and keep the record straight.
Well, Rhonda, since you published an anthology, you want to give her a couple of tips?
Sure.
Right.
Um, I guess I would say that every writer personality is a little different. And sometimes we fall into the trap of um, editing things to make it sound like how we would say it or how we would write it. And when we do that, sometimes we take away the voice of the person who submitted. So that's a habit that I had to break, and I didn't realize that was my habit until somebody pointed it out to me and said something was bothering me and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then I finally realized it's because this doesn't sound like me anymore. And all she had to do was say that to
Right.
me one time, and I never did that again. So I try to be very careful with that.
Right.
Yeah, just editing, but at the same time maintaining that voice. And then the other
Mhm.
thing is maybe staying true to what it is that you want to publish. Because it's very easy to get caught in the trap of, okay, I'm gonna publish all these people, so now I have 5 people under me. But if those 5 people don't align with the mission of my company, then I can lose myself.
Right.
So I think
Yeah,
those are
that's
2 things I
very
can throw out there.
Oh, that's very valuable. That kind of echoes volumes out there to me and everybody watching this broadcast. So, that's kind of insight that we really value and appreciate. So thank you for that. It's
Well,
overwhelming, when you're trying to represent others, but I really appreciate that, it's also their art, So I'll
Right,
consider
right.
that voice when we
yeah.
we start thinking about how carefully we'll handle their art.
Exactly. Somebody trusted us with their work. And so we want to make sure that we live up to that trust.
Mhm,
So if you
mhm. I
could give
appreciate
any advice to women who are in challenging relationships where they're really um, being mistreated, what
Yeah,
what advice would you give? Because it sounds like you were there for a while. You
I
were in that
was. I was
relationship for
uh,
a
I
while.
was several decades. So, I didn't feel like I didn't know anyone because of the isolation, and I never felt like I could ask for help and be safe to ask for help. So my advice is take charge and take control. Get help. Don't stay. Uh, don't make excuses to stay either. I stayed way too long, as more than 2 decades. I had to rely on myself and then eventually my grown son to help me break free because it affects everyone. It was my son going, this isn't normal, And then, so you have to recognize the tools of control. You're not saving anyone by staying and enduring the abuse. And in fact, you're isolating yourself and you're
Right.
not allowing that beautiful help to come into your life. You also have to change your belief about yourself. A lot of times the negatives that you hear from that other partner are sometimes the things that are your best assets, so you want to shift the focus of belief about yourself. The long arm of trauma is oppressive. It can be very long lasting, but when you begin to heal, you begin to thrive. And so for me, it was starting my own business, entrepreneuring, help restore my sense of self. Now I'm looking at short story collections, cookbooks, poem collections, but you just have to first get out of the situation, preserve yourself, and then do what you do best and take care of yourself, right? And find what you do best. For me, I love to write. I became a writer. I started writing business documents, regulatory documents, anything that I could do to write and be a writer. And eventually now I'm a survivor entrepreneur. So I'd say, get out, preserve, and then find what you love to become financially free. And you'll be surprised. Like I said, entrepreneur and starting a business can really save your life. So,
Beautiful
Well,
words. Love that.
those are, and I hope if anyone is out there that is experiencing trauma in a relationship, I hope JW's words help you. Because it's very debilitating. It can be life-threatening. Some people really don't survive it, literally don't survive it. So,
literally.
you know, it starts with belief in yourself. As you said, you have to start believing in yourself and having a little bit of confidence. And that's not it's easier said than done if you've been in something long term. So, anyway, we look forward to seeing you at the festival. And you have
Thank
your
you.
book, and it's Marriage 2001. I love your book cover. Do you have a copy of your book handy that you can show the
I
audience?
do, I do. Let
Okay.
me grab one.
Okay.
See. Yes, I do, I do. So there is my book, Marriage 2001, A Bruised Odyssey. That's
Yeah.
my first book, published in February of this year and available on all the major outlets, Ingram, Amazon, and Drafted Digital, bookshop.org, everywhere, and on the website, unpublications.com. I'll be at my first national festival this year. I'm very excited to be and honored to be at the festival in Houston this year. Come out and see me. And I hope to have that cookbook in hand too. So watch for that.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
congratulations. And
Thank
I will
you.
see you in Houston as well.
All
And we
right.
did put your link in the chat. So everybody get out there and support this venture. It's a very beautiful thing that you're doing. And I'm really proud of you for just taking all that you've experienced and channeling it in the way that you've done.
Thank you so much. It's such a blessing to hear those words and to be here to hear those words. And you guys are doing something so wonderful for our community. So thank you so much. And everyone out there, continue to tune in. This is how we stay together and grow together as a community at large. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. You have a wonderful evening.
All right. See you in a
Bye.
few weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Can't wait. I'll be there.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So our final guest will also be at the National Black Book Festival. And her name is Natasha Frazier. And let me bring her on. She has a romance book, so a romance novel, I should say. And she is going to be talking about her appearance at the festival. Oh, she has a t-shirt with her book cover on it. So, Natasha, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Okay.
being here.
Now, your new book is called Batch of Love.
Yes,
Is that your only book? Is that your first book?
that's my 19th book.
Your
on,
19th
19.
book. Oh, go ahead, 19. Are all of your books romance?
No, so I have about 3 or 4 devotionals, a nonfiction. I have 1 Bible study, and the rest are fiction, romance, and I have 3 that are romantic suspense.
Okay, so 19, but so somebody had said something like right off the bat. Oh, Pat Simmons says
She
she
says
loves
she
to
loves your
write.
writing.
Thank you, Pat.
She was the first guest on the show. And so yeah, and Rhonda already put your website in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Stephanie Burnham said, "Wow, great marketing. Those t-shirts sell books."
Thank you.
It's
So
a
will
nice
you
cover too. I like it.
So will you be bringing your t-shirts or wearing your t-shirt at the festival?
I actually have an apron with the cover on it because my main character is a baker, so I'll be wearing that at the festival.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Apron. There's all kinds of imprints you can get now. All different. This is a lot more accessible than it was in years past. So tell us about your new book, Batch of Love, and what's the storyline? The main character is a cook. The man is a chef, like a chef?
No.
Oh, okay.
So Batch of Love, it's a second chance romance between high school sweethearts. And the main character, Ginger, she's a baker who has her own bakery in Katie Mills Food Court. But her dream is to have her own brick and mortar bakery. She's already spotted out the building. And so the book opens on the anniversary of her mother's death date. So she had promised her mom that she would someday open her own bakery. And so with her mom's death date, she is now feeling like she hasn't quite accomplished her dream, her goal. And so she enters this baking competition, and her love interest, Brock, he is a lawyer who works for the company who's hosting the baking competition. But once the CEO of the company finds out who Ginger is, she's like the daughter of his college rival. He sets out to take her business down. And so her love interest gets caught in the middle of that.
Oh, so this is love interest, and it sounds like it's some drama, not relationship drama, it's other kinds of drama.
Well, they have their own issues to contend with because, you know, they dated 20 years ago. So they hadn't seen each other in roughly 20 years. So they have their own unresolved issues that they have to deal with.
Okay. So the second chance romance theme, is that someone else mentioned second chance romance? Was it Pat, Rhonda? Did Pat say something about a second chance romance in one of her books? Somebody on the show tonight said it, I thought. But it's a second chance.
It could be Pat or Charity.
It had to be Pat or Charity. Could have been. But could have been Charity. But it's a second chance romance. Does that mean that they knew each other in the past and then they were disconnected for many years and then they kind of run into each other or reconnect? Is that what?
Yeah. So in my second chance romances, the characters had a relationship with each other in the past. So that's what happens here. Yeah, they knew each other. They grew up in high school. They dated in high school for several years and had plans to go off to college and, you know, get married and all of that, but things didn't work out. And so they're still harboring a little bit of resentment because of each one blaming the other for what happened. And so they have to work through that as well.
Okay.
That's how we do. It's never our fault.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that I don't know how common it is that knowing someone like from your high school years and then 20, 30 years later getting together. But I do know two couples. Well, one is a good friend of mine who was married to someone. They got divorced, and then I think she went to her high school reunion and ran into one of her classmates, and they dated for a few years, and they got married not too long ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it happens. So, and she wasn't sure. I know she went through a period where she wasn't meeting people, and you know, she was disappointed, and she was raising a son who just started college this year. So it does happen.
It happens. It's real life. It happens.
And there was another couple, I think they were at the festival last year, the year before. They wrote a book together and they were high school sweethearts, and they both married other people. Both of them, their spouses died.
Oh.
And then they ended up back together like 30 years later, or maybe more than that. And then they wrote a book about it, about their relationship, and they were at the festival. It was either last year or the year before. So
it happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
I have a similar thing happened in the reunion. I have in my romantic suspense book, The Reunion, where they reconnected at the reunion, and a lot of other things happened, but because they reconnected there, that's how their relationship sparked. It was a college reunion though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes I've only been to one of my high school reunions, but it's interesting seeing people that you haven't seen for, you know, decades. And, you know, the original person is still in there. You know, a lot of them, as far as the way they look, well, you know, black don't crack, so to speak. Let me just say that. So that person, you can still see that person. Some of them didn't really change that much at all. And some change more. Normally it's the weight that makes the change.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times they pick up weight, but those are interesting. I was interested in mine, and I hope to go to the next one whenever they have it. So now you writing The Batch of Love as your new book. How does it connect with your other books that you've written? Your other fiction novels, are they the ones that are romances in particular?
The one common thread is the thread of faith and second chance romances. I'd say roughly half of my fiction, if not more, are second chance romances, but it's not connected to the series. I have 4 other series, and it's not connected to the other series. It's starting a new one.
Okay, so are you an indie author, or you
Yes.
with a
Yes.
so all of your books you self-published them all?
Yes.
Do you do them through who do you do them through? Do you do them through KDP, or do you use another publisher?
Ingram Spark.
Ingram Spark, okay.
The Kindle is on KDP, but the print is through Ingram Spark.
Okay. That's interesting. I've used them for one book that I have, and it's the hardcover edition of a paperback. But all of my paperbacks are through KDP.
Oh, okay.
So what would you say the difference with Ingram Spark is? Like an advantage for using them?
The distribution, because with Ingram, you get distribution wide as far as the paperback being available on all online retailers. But I believe with KDP, it's just available on Amazon.
KDP, yeah.
Right. And so with Ingram, you can get the book online from Barnes and Noble or anywhere online books are sold, because
Walmart,
Ingram
Target, yeah.
distributes them.
Okay. Now, somehow, some of my books are other places too. And I don't know how that, like, all of my books are through KDP now, except the one hardcover. But they end up on other platforms, some on Barnes and Nobles or Walmart or Target. But it's like it's random. I don't know what triggered it. You know how you Google your stuff and then you find out, oh, it's there. But I didn't send it to. So
Okay.
I don't know how this happening. But when you go through KDP and you select the I forget I forgot the word they use, but the widespread distribution. There's an option for wider distribution. Then your book is with Ingram, the distributor.
Oh.
And then through that, bookstores can order it through Ingram. Any bookstore can order it through Ingram.
And you can do that through KDP as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just like a click. It's one of their little options. You pick wider distribution. Now and so all of my books are available through Ingram distributors.
Okay.
Which means somebody can go in Barnes and Nobles or any independent bookstore and ask for it. Doesn't mean it'll be on the shelf unless a whole bunch of people ask for it, but it'll be available. So I just wanted to know that from Ingram Spark. I did Ingram Spark because I couldn't get a hardcover through KDP, and they still don't have hardcover children's books.
Okay, and you have children's books?
Yeah, I do have some children's books.
Okay.
Not all of them, but some of them. So anyway, tell us more about your other writing. You have 19 books, you said. So what are some of the topics that you like to focus on for your other books that aren't romances or second chances?
So I write inspirational romance. So they all have a faith thread where a character is trying to get over something and they have to rely on their faith in order to bring them through. And the romance thread is sort of just happening alongside them as they're growing in their faith. Their romance is also developing as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now, what about you said you had some other books too, the nonfiction. You do journals or something. You was talking about that.
Yes, so I have a 30-day devotional, a 1-year devotional, and a journal that goes along with that. I have a 52-week mommy devotional. So it's a devotional for moms. The devotionals in there are based off of my own personal experiences being a young mother at that time, and just seeing how God is at work in our lives through our relationships with our children. So a lot of times, for example, let's say there's one devotional I remember where I talked about how I think we had went to like Firestone or somewhere, and my husband we dropped him off to pick up his car, right? And so on our way back home, my daughter is in the back screaming like, "Where is daddy? Where is daddy? I can't see him." And, eventually I'm like, just because you can't see him doesn't mean he's not there. And so at
That's a message.
at that moment, yes, the Holy Spirit, like, same thing. Just because you can't see me doesn't mean I'm not here. And so a lot of those kind of situations is what I talk about in the Mommy Devotional. I have this 8-week Bible study that I wrote during the pandemic pursuit, exploring God's endless quest for my heart. Because, during that time, we're all wondering, what it is that God is trying to teach us. But throughout it all, I used Moses, David. David is one of my favorite people in the Bible, and just talked about like everything that they went through was because God was pursuing them. And so the question is, how is God pursuing me in all of this? And so that is one of my books. It's an 8-week Bible study. And let's see. How Long Are You Going to Wait? Is my little pink book. And it is a complement to my devotional, The Life Your Spirit Craves. And How Long Are You Going to Wait stems from Joshua 18:3, which says, "How long are you going to wait before you take possession of the land the Lord your God has already given to you?" And so The Life Your Spirit Craves was my very first book. And it dealt with my own procrastination in writing. And so a lot of times, we don't do stuff because we feel like we don't have time. We don't have the resources. We don't know whether or not people are going to support us. We put our attention on all these other things when God has already given us something that he wants us to do. So the question is, how long are you going to wait to do that? And so there are questions throughout my little pink book to kind of help you get over that hump and pursue what it is that God is leading you to do.
I like that. And that's a very, very poignant message, because I hear people all the time when they find out that I'm an author who say, "I've always wanted to write a book, but I don't know where to start," or "I can't find the time," or I sometimes kind of look down my nose at people who say they don't have time to do something. I'm like, I'm probably one of the busiest people I know. And I don't see you doing half as much. And you're saying that you don't have time to do this or that. So, but we make time for the things that we want to make time for. We make time for the things that we feel are a priority. And sometimes, unfortunately, our dreams and desires aren't always our priority, because we have been conditioned to think that we're supposed to do for other people. And if we do for ourselves, then we're selfish.
Mm-hmm. And you have to self-assess, right? What am I really spending my time on? Because a lot of times we can all find pockets of time. How much time are you spending watching TV? How much time are you spending scrolling social media? How much time are you just wasting? Right? We can find 30 minutes. We can get up 30 minutes earlier. We can do some things on our lunch break. That's how I started. You can stay up 30 minutes later. Just every little bit counts. And I think part of the issue is that we see it, this great big task, right? I don't have time to do this great big thing. But if
Because we're looking at the elephant, we're not looking at the small bites. They say, how do you eat an elephant?
Yes.
One bite at a time.
Yes,
But we're looking
just
at
a
the
little
elephant.
bit.
I
And
love
that's
it.
what we have to break it down to, just doing a little bit at a time, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the things that we do are mind numbing. You know, scrolling social media and watching some of the TV that's on. It can be mind numbing. And
Speaking of that, my TV show's coming on tomorrow night.
which one is that?
Oh, I like reality shows.
Oh,
I
that's
watch
right, you do.
Yeah, I watched The Circle on Netflix. It's the season is starting up again tomorrow.
I'm trying to get something happened and I lost
I'm about to say, what are you doing,
I
Gwen?
lost my backdrop. And then when I'm trying to get it back, it's got like a green thing behind me. And I'm trying to figure out how to get it back, but it may just
There it is.
in green. So you see it's green like around.
Yeah, I see your backdrop now.
Yeah, but it's
but
green.
she's talking about the green outline around her
It's
hair.
a green outline. And I don't know what happened. I went off screen. I stopped the video because my nose was itching and I didn't want to be doing it on screen. Then I turned it back on and it's doing all kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, when it's live, anything can happen. So, but I agree with you on we make time for things we want to do. And I also agree that Rhonda, you are a very busy person. I thought I was busy, but I think we're neck and neck in terms of other stuff that we try to get done. But you know what they say, busy people get things done.
Yeah, I think because we're so used to being busy, we don't know how to just sit still. So we're like, okay, something needs to be done. Let me just do it. Let me just jump in there.
And a lot of
Sometimes
it
I
is
wish I weren't doing that.
Yeah, compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
It takes that art or talent to be able to compartmentalize, to get all 5 of those things done. And sometimes, and multitasking. Sometimes you're doing them together with whatever else you're working on.
Right. And I think that's the reason why I watch reality shows.
So it's like an escape.
Yeah, because sometimes my brain is going 50 million miles an hour. So I play my little game. You know how we talked last week about playing the games on your phone?
Yeah.
Sometimes I do that because it just kind of brings me down a little bit, or I'll watch TV and that brings me down a little bit. And I'm trying to do better about staying present in the moment because I was multitasking so much to where my daughter would be like, hey, let's watch a movie. And the whole time I'm watching a movie, I'm typing or I'm scrolling or something. And she was like, Mom, you missed the whole thing. I'm like, no, I didn't. I know exactly what happened. But so I'm trying to learn how to be more in the moment because it just helps me to bring down. And so I'm not doing 50 things at one time.
Now your devotionals, they cover different time periods. Like you have the one that's you said 52 weeks is one. And then you have a 30-day one. Did you say you had a 30-day one?
Right.
And then what's the other one? The other
A 1 year one. 1 year, 365 days in the Lord's presence.
So daily. So you have a daily
Yes.
one and then you have the weekly one. Okay. So what made you break it down that way?
So my very first book was a 30-day devotional, right? The one that I talked about, the Like Your Spirit Craves, seeking what it is that God will have you to do in this moment. My second book was the 1 year devotional. So that one had been on my heart after I finished that one. And so those are essentially devotionals from my own personal study time that I wrote down and shared. And I have the 1 year journal that goes along with that came out many years later, but I thought it would be a really good companion for people to write down their own takeaways, because it's good to read what other people have gotten from the message, but it's also good for us to kind of sit down and internalize, what is God saying to me, and to write those things down as well. And so that's how I came up with that one. And the mommy book just essentially had to do with my own personal dealings with my kids. At the time I wrote that one, I had 2 kids and I was pregnant with my third. So.
Wow. So it sounds like your mind goes 100 miles an hour. However, you've done a great job of channeling that and to use that to help other people.
Right. I'd say that. Yeah, absolutely. And I love romance. And so when I started reading heavily around 15, 16, I started reading romance. Romance I probably shouldn't have been reading at the age. I was reading those BET Arabesque romance books.
Yes, I remember those.
And swapping them out with my cousins. But it wasn't until I think 2015 when I wrote my first fiction book, because I started writing in 2012. So it was 2015 when I wrote my first fiction.
Okay, well, you've accomplished a lot being an indie author, and so you're writing more than one book a year.
Yes, roughly 2. Yeah, roughly 2.
Yeah, that's like sometimes I might do 2 books in a year. and then I might go a year and not do any. So it just depends. I didn't do any new books this year. So I have my one book that I release every January is an updated edition that's on Debt Free College. So I've been doing that annually, an annual revised edition for the last 9 years. So
Wow.
that book comes out every January. So it's always new. Um, and that book was written because I wanted my daughter to go to college debt free. And then people asked me my methods, and then I put it in a book, and then that's my top selling book. Just every year I said. In fact, somebody just ordered like 45 copies of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So was on KDP. You can see in real time your orders every day. Well, really throughout the day. In real time, you can see if somebody orders the book. And it was an order for 45 copies. So that was exciting. So it's always new. And so I keep, it has scholarships in it, and I keep it up to date with the scholarships and it's for everyone. Anyone who wants to go to college without debt and graduate with no debt. For undergraduate, especially. Graduate school is a little harder, but for undergraduate, it's possible. And so, it's just like when you being a mom, your mommy book was because you were a mom and you wanted to help other mothers. And that was what motivated me. Want my daughter to be debt free. And she graduated debt free. But it's thousands of people have bought that book and been helped. And I love to get the feedback from people who tell me they got money for school or they were debt free. And one person told me that because their parent had saved some money for school, but they used my book and they didn't need the money. They got scholarships for everything. So when the person graduated, the parents gave them that money to put toward a brand new car. So yeah, somebody told me that recently. So anyway, so what are your plans for? I know you were going to see you at the National Black Book Festival, so we're excited to meet you there. And so, what are your plans going forward? Do you have any books in the can that you're working on?
Absolutely. So I'm working on book 2 in this series, and I also have another romantic suspense series that I started, The Four Kings. So I have book 1 written for that, and I'm starting book 2 after I'm done with this. So a couple of things coming down the pipeline. Just have to plan my releases.
Okay. So do you write full time?
I do not. No.
Okay.
No, I'm an accountant.
Oh, my daughter's an accountant.
Yes.
You're a numbers lady.
Yeah.
I am.
My daughter loves numbers, and that's the field that she picked. And she's, she hasn't been in it. She graduated in 2019, so 5 years.
Speaking of numbers, I just have to tell Cuthbert, you don't ask people how much money they make.
Oh, somebody asked that on the chat.
He just put, how much money do you make off the book?
Oh no, you can't. Don't ask people that. What you do is, if you're an author, you go write a book yourself, and then upload it and put it in the format for publishing it. And then the system will tell you how much the book costs you. And then you get to decide how much you're going to charge for the book. But for other people telling what they pay and charge, that is normally something that's personal and is not necessarily shared with the public. Because some people can't handle it. So, you don't want it. Some people think if you charge $15 for the book, that you make the $15,
Well, some people are charging $20 for a book, and their book is only 10 pages long.
Yeah, that's true. And if some people are willing to pay that,
hey, more power to them.
Well, Natasha, we're at the end of our time. We look forward to seeing you in a few weeks at the National Black Book Festival. And congratulations on all your writing success. I thought this was your first book. So but you've got 19 books. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
takes real dedication and stick-to-itiveness, as they say.
Keep doing
Thank
it.
you
I
so
look forward
much.
to meeting you in Houston in October, next month. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
In a
just
few weeks.
3
Yeah.
weeks from now, it's coming up quick. Okay, so that's it for this week's show. We will be back next week with another episode of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.